Okay, Helen mentioned Tom Martin. One of the biggest mistakes in my backpacking and hiking career was hiking with Tom Martin. About 10 years ago, we were on a private river trip, and we had made arrangements to have backcountry permits during this winter trip so that we could hike on the north side of the river and do backpacking trips off of the river. And so we made arrangements to spend 4 nights at Crystal Rapid, and then those of us who wanted to stay around Crystal, we could do that and just do day hikes. Others went backpacking up Crystal Canyon. The first day I was interested in taking pictures on the tunnel platform down here, and Tom disappeared, but at the end of the day he came back and he told me what he had done, and I could hardly believe it. He had climbed up the Red Wall and on up through the Supai and gotten to the top of Osiris, or the Tower of Ra, and told me what route he had taken. And I had just been up there and kind of looked at that face, and I didn't think it was possible. So Tom said, well, if you don't mind a little exposure, the day after tomorrow I'm going to go up the same route and try to get over to Osiris and climb it. So I went with him 2 days later, and we climbed up through the Red Wall in here, which looks much like this, and then walked this nice edge, the top of the Red Wall. And turning around, looking the other way, here's Tom continuing on up the route. And this is Tower of Ra up here, which he had climbed 2 days earlier. We bypassed the Tower of Ra and went on over to Osiris. Did climb it, but used another route to come down that didn't require walking this knife edge. And up here in the Supai, there were pieces of the ridge that were missing, so we'd come to these kinds of things. And this is where I required some help. I felt like I mentally had to open my mental fuse box and switch off all of the alarm systems. Everything that would prevent me from doing things that were crazy. I just had to switch off those alarms. And we had a wonderful day hike. We got back long after dark, but it was quite an experience. But I don't hike with Tom much anymore. This is the summit of Osiris Temple. And Shiva Temple over here in the North Rim, Isis Temple, and the South Rim over here. One time we were on a backpack that was going to take us down Soap Creek Canyon, and we came to this place where there was kind of an open sandy spot, but this boulder had fallen into the middle of that area. And what astounded me was that the nearest cliff was at least 100 feet away. So almost I can't imagine how this happened, but I suppose a rock can bound down a very steep slope and hit right on the edge and jump out 100 feet. But we realized, because this looked so fresh, if you look at this edge, it's just absolutely sharp. You know, it looked like it had just happened a few minutes earlier, so we then realized that, wow, if we had started from the trailhead a little earlier, that perhaps the scene could have looked like this. Some of you probably know Maverick. Maverick and his wife live on the South Rim. And Maverick, 2 years ago, for his 80th birthday, completed over 100 cross-canyon hikes in 1 year. 100, I think it was 106 crossings in 1 year. He would typically take the shuttle to the North Rim, start down the trail in the afternoon, more or less hike all night, get out the next afternoon, spend the day at home, go back to the North Rim. Can't seem to get rid of Maverick. I don't know if any of you recognize this leg, but this belongs to Helen Thompson. And we were on a climb of the battleship, and Helen ran into an agave. But Helen, working at the South Rim, follows all of the rules to the T, and if she packed it in, she packs it out. So she captured all of her blood in her sock. Very thoughtful. A boatman who was standing at the edge of one of the pools at Ellis Chasm, suddenly lost his footing and just sat down very quickly and found this the next morning. And showed it to me, knowing I'd be interested in this kind of thing. And just looking at the contrast between the red and the purple, yes, very interesting. This guy's nickname, which had been given to him decades earlier, was Bummer. Okay, flash floods are part of life in the Grand Canyon. This is in the lower end of Conquistador Isle, looking upstream. And you can see that this flood is growing. It's just overwhelming these gravelly areas here. Funny thing happened when I was taking these pictures. I had a camera case that was malfunctioning, and occasionally the upper part of the case would fall off. And in this case, it fell off, hit a rock at my feet, and bounced into the flood and got washed down to the Colorado, which is only about 50 feet off to the left, and floated away. About 6 months later, I'm not kidding about this, I was on a backpack downstream from here on the other side of the river and was walking upstream and down in the rocks noticed a black camera case and took off my backpack and reached down in between these rocks and pulled it out, and it wasn't mine. I was absolutely sure that it was mine, but it was not mine. Flash flood down Ryder Canyon, and this picture was taken very late in the day, and it was beginning to rain hard again, and this flood got much larger once it got dark. Kind of a spooky place to be in the confines of that narrow canyon with this roar going through. If you're afraid that it might flood during the night, this is where you camp. Flash floods are what make the canyon bigger. So here's the lower end of the patio, and a picture taken a couple of years ago after a rock fall. And then we had a really big flash flood down Clear Creek, or down Deer Creek, and it carried all of this stuff away, and here's the same location as seen this summer. So all that debris gets washed down through the narrows of Deer Creek and on into the river, contributing a little bit to the rapid. And I'll bring up a little calculation here. This isn't quite fair, but if you use the age of about 6 million years for the age of the Grand Canyon, and you use 800 cubic miles as the volume, and you look at how much rock is being removed per second over 6 million years, it's 2/3 of a cubic foot. You do that for 6 million years and you have a Grand Canyon, simple as that. But what we don't really know is the absolute exact age of the canyon. 6 million years is pretty likely to be pretty close. And we don't know what kind of terrain or what the topography looked like before there was a through-flowing river that became Grand Canyon. But still, that 2/3 of a cubic foot is kind of interesting. Down at the bottom of the Grand Canyon are the oldest rocks, of course, the Vishnu Group rocks, 1.7 and 1.84 billion years old. And some parts of the Vishnu Group are liable to take on fluting and polishing. And this is the Ellis Chasm gneiss, a little bit upstream from Ellis Chasm. It's beautifully polished Vishnu Group rocks near 83 Mile Canyon. This little wall is about 25 feet above the river on the right-hand side, but facing downstream. And it's not too far up, the wall is not too far upstream from Clear Creek Canyon, and usually when you go past this point, you're facing downstream, and you don't notice things like this, because they're just facing the wrong direction.